And I'd love to welcome everybody back to the Independent Investor Channel. I've got a couple special guests tonight. I love when we do this. It's an awesome opportunity to get multiple perspectives for you guys. So at your leisure, man, I'd love to invite everybody back into the gallery. Leave your comments, please. Attention to Kyle while we've got him on, as well as 𝑪𝑎𝑐𝑡𝑉𝑢𝑚𝑏𝑛𝑎𝑖𝑙𝑠 is in the group as well. Both featured channels of mine, friends of the channel. We love to bring in and facilitate a discussion on what's going on right now in the world, and it is immense. There's a ton of stuff going on right now. So I want to welcome both of these gentlemen and allow a little bit of time to come into the live stream. Pour yourself a drink, be ready, because it's usually like lightning when these guys are on the live stream. So let's take a just short break. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Awesome stuff, man. We'll get right down to business. We were just talking all things that are going on right now, obviously coming into 2025. And just as of late today, with the tariff discussion, market was trudging right along. I knew that this was going to be a year of volatility, which kind of spoke to some of my portfolio moves that I alluded to last week, which people will be interested in. That's for sure. I could just come on and just talk about tried and true investing and time in the market and all that stuff. Me and 𝑪𝑎𝑐𝑡𝑉𝑢𝑚𝑏𝑛𝑎𝑖𝑙𝑠 were having a good discussion earlier on today about even myself evolving as an investor. Man, I'm 47 years old, and it's amazing to me how doing this YouTube project has taken me through phases of investing. And it doesn't mean that, those phases were wrong, but I love to be able to come on and convey, how independent investors, evolve with the markets, react to certain injects, different political and geopolitical and global injects to markets, and how we react to those in our portfolio, if at all. Or if we do, those are of interest in some of the topics that we were talking about. But I want to bring Kyle in, just get his thoughts on the pulse here, closing down the first month of 2025. I was just looking back, guys. The last down market was in 2022, 18% on the S&P. Then we went back a couple years before that, and it was only a 4% decline. The last big decline we had was all the way back to 2008 in the S&P. So I guess the grander question is, are we looking at a market right now that needs to potentially correct a little bit, and are valuations stretched in this market as we see it now? So Kyle, welcome to the channel, man. You were saying?
Oh, pleasure, man. I love seeing the captain back on board. Hello, everybody in the chat. I'm going to backspin a little bit because we were talking about global currencies and the effect of tariff wars. But I think more intriguingly, when you're talking about the valuations of the market, and I think what people are misconstruing with being in kind of an overvalued market, is they're looking at valuations of certain stocks saying like Meta's growing great, Nvidia is still growing like absurdly. But when you look at companies like Tesla, there's a lot of speculation that's been bubbling back up. But like my real concern is people don't understand how a lot of these businesses are basically trading up big business. Like Nvidia, for example, is buying like I think 40 or 50% of the revenues. I'd have to check, but it's like half the revenues coming straight from like 5 companies. And at any point in time, if those 5 companies decide to turn, and that could be 1 year, 3 or 5 years from now, like they could just see a rocket down just as fast as they rocketed up. But I don't know. A lot of people point to PEs. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to gamble on the valuations because I still think companies in here are cheap. There's a variation, but same thing with interest rates, right? Like the financials have skyrocketed because interest rates are high. And if that changes in the future, you're going to see JP Morgan start to settle down on their bottom line. I mean, there's a lot of weird fluxing going on that's really hard to pinpoint. But yeah, the valuations are obviously a bit higher, but I'm sure 𝑪𝑎𝑐𝑡𝑉𝑢𝑚𝑏𝑛𝑎𝑖𝑙𝑠 has a few points coming from the realm of high valuations.
I mean, there's always a lot of talk, right, about the market, but at the end of the day, it's like, what am I going to do about it? I mean, and especially for myself, I think of myself as an owner, and a lot of times when I invest through private placements.
Yeah.
So my shares are restricted. Like, okay, so what am I going to do? And if, we all, are obviously invested in Aduro. Okay, interest rates high, interest rate low, crashing or not, like, we still got to solve the plastic problem. And so I'm just kind of like, I'm riding for the ride. I'm not gonna like try to time it in and out. Even if I could, I can't because my shares are restricted. But there's so many things that stress me out in my life. I'm not gonna let that stress me out.
Yeah, I think I'm plugging a little bit. It's probably the most opportune. I was telling Ryan that I'm kind of just getting over it, but I'm very thankful that through this mess, that 80% of our money is in US dollars right now. Because oh my God, the rate of return that is offered me as a foreigner, it's like, well, maybe not a foreigner to Canada, a foreigner to the US has been like unbelievable, man. Yeah, we were just saying, I wouldn't mind getting your points, because I mean, on what you guys think coming from the US, looking at Canada and your thoughts on these tariffs, because if they do come into play, I mean, Canada is going to be in one hell of a shitty spot. I'm sure. I don't know what Trump's trying to do specifically, whether he thinks, local business will pick up and start choosing local over foreign, or, what we end up striking back with. But like, I don't know how much you guys see of Canadian politics, but it's a fucking, like, it's getting crazy. I'm just saying, like the rhetoric.
You know what I find interesting about these tariffs, and you see a lot of videos, like when Biden was president, you saw the conservatives constantly criticizing Biden, and now it's the liberals constantly criticizing Trump, right? And they're saying, oh, the other countries are not paying tariffs. We are the ones paying tariffs. And I'm like, you really think he doesn't know that? like he obviously he knows that, but I just think that he's using this as a negotiating tool, because like what you just said, it's like, whether it's Canada or Mexico or some other countries, you don't want tariffs because then you become less competitive for trying to sell things to US people. So what is he trying to do? Is he trying to scare you into doing something by scaring you that he's going to put the tariffs on? I think so. I think he wants something out of these countries.
Let's see, Brian.
I think what's of interest to me, and what I was telling Kyle before we came live, is we've already had one round of 4 years with Trump in office. And I can remember specifically, there was a few comments where I'd look at the portfolio and be like, wow, that tweet right there cost me $10,000, And so like, I'm not really surprised. For me, and it was interesting, like your video today was phenomenal, Mariusz. It was just so on point. That's just one opinion. I think when people look at that, it's really going to reach a lot of people. But when I was moving into 2025, I looked at my position in Aduro, which for me is a sizable position. Stacked up against retail investors below me, I've got a pretty sizable position. I feel privileged to know you. I've known you a long, long time. I know your position. I will not speak about it on social media. I'll leave that to you. You speak on it pretty openly about the 1% ownership. That's all real. And we know people with significantly more shares than you as well. And there's not many of us in the world outside of the upper management with the company. So there's a handful of people that own this company, right? What does it mean for me? I looked at 2022 in the depths of the downturn as being a very opportunistic time to be buying financial markets. Kyle, remember that? You knew when you came in, you were pulsing in with me. That was my vibe. And I made a ton of money. The portfolio's doubled since then. We just went over the $750,000 mark, over 800,000 for the first time. I just did the calcs tonight. But I wasn't speaking on that in 2022 when I was making those big bets. And there wasn't a lot of people coming on saying, yeah, this is the time to buy. I find the opposite now. I feel like everybody's excited about Bitcoin. Everybody's excited about AI. Everybody's excited about the direction of the stock market. Look, 2025 is going to be a volatile year. We may end up 10% in the S&P 500. We could be down 10% in the S&P. Neither one of those scenarios would surprise me. For me, I look at money markets accounts paying 4 to 5%. I look at fixed income paying 5 for me. And my decision to move to safety was based on my core position in Aduro and everything that I have on the fringes, the dividend portfolio, the passive portions, which are significantly less as a total percentage of the whole portfolio. So it's not like I pulled completely out of the market, but I've moved a significant amount of wealth away from S&P investments and move that to my for sure 4 or 5%. And I will patiently wait because I look at a lot of different factors, real estate being one of those. And nobody talks about the impacts of people waking up to a real estate market that has gone bananas and how that absolutely will bleed into the stock market. See, we're just looking for an excuse to correct, like that tariff announcement today. You saw what was happening. We were in an up day until the end of the market, until the tariff announcement. That's exactly what we need, is an excuse to introduce volatility back into the market. And that's going to be our excuse to move lower, I think, and really shed some light on what I feel are some stretched valuations and some real systemic risk out there, both here domestically and globally. So
Ryan, but Ryan, has there ever been a day that somebody hasn't been predicting a crash or end of the world? It seems like
yeah,
for the past 10 years, it's like, oh, the crash is around the corner,
Yeah. And it's the same thing with real estate too. They've been talking about the real estate has to come down. Well, no, it doesn't. And the market doesn't need to come down either. I just look at it I sit back and I look at it and I say, what type of performance do I expect in the short to medium term over the S&P 500? Do I want to be doubly exposed in what I think is the investment of a lifetime in Aduro Clean Technologies, which was one of the very, very few green stocks in the market today? Aduro, the way it has been trading has been very, very encouraging in showing incredible strength, right? I've seen nothing in January to suggest to me that this isn't going to be a volatile year. As far as a crash, I think it's probably more accurate to suggest that at some point in the short to medium term, we're probably due for a correction. And that'll be the time that I potentially step back into the market. But for now, I'm good to be on the sideline. I'm good to continue to make my money in Aduro Clean Technologies. My forecast is 12 to 24 months here. That could happen next week, Mariusz. This, like you've said many times, this could happen and move north for very little reason. You spoke about catalysts on your video. Is that necessary? No, not really. Because once this is discovered, right, it's going to be a realization that we're trading south of 200 million, and some of these other companies that are just absolute dog shit that get the favor in the market are north of $1 billion, $2 billion in market cap. And I think those companies' fates are doomed. I don't know how a pure cycle gets out of this mess that they've created. I don't know. I think if you took Aduro technology and deployed the pure cycle business plan, I think that fails, right? I wouldn't be as bullish if Aduro said, I'm just going to build this huge plant. Come to me. We're going to sell our product to you. It doesn't work that way. Aduro is saying we're taking our solution to you, which again, as these announcements are coming, my conviction is growing. It's not the same now as it was 2 years ago. We have de-risked the company so much over the last couple of years, and I think that will continue. So I just think that's where my focus wants to be. And I don't want to preach doom and gloom, but my thing is somebody who's invested in the S&P 500, who's got a stack of high society, right? Do they risk more or less than the person who's got 250,000, 500,000 in the S&P at these valuations, right? You have to take into consideration the scale and the magnitude of the investment. If you're bullish on the future, you can come in and say, you're wrong. I'm good. I don't care. For me, I care, right? So I felt like it was prudent to kind of throttle back. And quite frankly, it frees up some white meat for an eventual potential step into the market or on a digression and Aduro shares, I can continue to build my position in that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm sitting here in a much different perspective and time horizon. You know, if I was in retirement, even if I was in retirement, I wouldn't care, and I'd still be fully exposed to the market regardless, depending on you know, what you're doing. But I do like the for most people out there to just continue to cost average. And if you're that worried, put a stock market emergency fund aside and put it in, like, you're doing high interest or treasuries or whatever. And then if the market dips by like double digits, 10% or more, double up your monthly contributions, find stocks. The problem I have is that, like, I always see, like, there's a lot of moving chips, and I want to just try and be in the advantage of the moving chips. So regardless if the US market drops, if the US market drops, the Canadian market's going to drop with it, and our dollar is probably going to keep going down. And like the dollar conversion difference that, like, we've made over here, just putting 80% of our assets in the United States, like our returns look so much more excelled than what you guys see in your own dollars. But if you just left the country, like, I just don't, again, I don't think if I was in the US right now, and same with Aduro, like, I even buy Aduro on the NASDAQ. I won't buy it on the TSX because I don't want to own it in Canadian dollars, even though it's a Canadian company, because I'm going to see a double benefit, because those valued of shares when I sell them are needed at this point if the dollar keeps going the way it's going. And that could change at some point, but I just, like, I still feel like there's a lot of opportunity out there with, depending on what you're looking at. I mean, you know, it's hard, like you're saying, looking at the broad market, because I could say one company like Tesla's trading at absolutely absurd valuations with no growth for the next 2 years. I don't know how people are holding it when you got a company like Meta that was trading almost at the same value, like I was saying. And it's like, look at the growth difference. And I mean, they make 20 billion versus Tesla's 2 billion net income. Like, Tesla, just to meet Meta at the value they're trading at, they need a 10x. It's like, that ain't coming in the next few years. I'm sorry, I just don't see it, right? So I mean, you could say that's overvalued, and you could say, like, the same thing like we were saying with Nvidia, whatever. But then you could look at companies like Google, or, you know, there's so many companies out there like Meta. Like, yeah, it's getting expensive and valued, but then you got companies like Microsoft and Apple that are overvalued technically, and they're coming down, and their earnings are going up. So you're starting to see, it's hard when you broad view it, like, where the faults are. I think we're in an AI bubble personally, and like you're saying, I still think we could see some good correctional periods with speculation, especially with crypto the way it's been going. I mean, it's a true sign. We just went through this in 2020. Like, wake the F up. We've all seen this. We went from a depressed market where me and you had a good time, because that's where we get rich, to this new market where it's like, well, fuck, I don't want to stop buying, but like, it's hard. Like, obviously things aren't as fun when they're, you know, perpetuating new multiples they haven't seen on growth rates that aren't that resilient, you know? So,
Mariusz, what you got, man? Mariusz is like the most, he's a super unique investor in this. Do you even own a mega cap stock? I've known you a long time, man, and I'm just fascinated by your style. You're a better buy and hold investor than I am, and you can buy and hold these stocks with conviction. It's a politically correct way of saying that you invest with balls. You know, if I could pay you the best compliment, I don't know how the hell you do it, to be honest with you. I know my tolerance level. I know what I'm capable of, and I don't know how you do it. It's impressive. I'm a fan, but like the discussion that we're having, Mariusz, like, do you even pay attention to those mega markets, or do you just
I don't
focus on
care.
your
I just don't
swim lane?
care. I didn't even
Yeah,
know. I didn't even know the market was down today.
yeah.
I just learned from you. You know,
yeah,
and you know, the thing is that, like, okay, I am 45 right now. I graduated college in 2003, so more than 20 years, right? I have never had a stable job. Never had health insurance. I mean, I had it for like 2 years, and like that, like, my life is a roller coaster. Like, I don't know what it's like to have salary, what it's like to have a safety net.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
jobs, they were always unstable, then things fell apart. I graduated college during the worst, right after the dot-com bubble, so there was no
Yep,
jobs. Then I entered the real estate industry, and guess what? The 2008, 2009 financial crisis came.
that's
That
right.
wiped out my job, right? Then I went into stock market investing. Then I got involved into you know, mining stocks. They, you know, they did what they did.
Tough.
It's like, you know, I don't know what it's like to be safe. So whatever you guys are talking about, it's like I've experienced times 100, so
Yeah, I agree with that.
so it's kind of like, I'm used to having income and then it being gone, and then I have to figure out what to do next, and it's just a way of life for me, and that's why I don't stress over these things. I mean, of course I'm annoyed, but like I just hold those things and that's it, and I just don't
Yeah.
worry about the big things that everybody else is talking about. I hold my Aduro, I hold my other stuff, but no, I don't have any mega stocks.
Yeah, I think the split between us is hilarious because Ryan,
It
a little
is.
bit older, probably a lot more conservative. I'm probably like mid risk on, but like still relative conservative, mitigating position sizing and all that. And then Mario is like in a whole different realm of just.
But
I-
that's why
I
when I say sometimes on my YouTube channel, like, Matador, gladiator, like, it's like
Yeah,
people
yeah.
go out there and criticizing. It's like, dude, I'm dealing with a bull here. Just shut your mouth and sit on the sidelines,
I think by traditional methods, people would look at me as an aggressive investor. Okay. It was sitting on a panel with you guys, right? But like, I'm trying to combat like misconceptions in stock market investing for people who are scared to death of owning single stock. Or the question is, have you ever owned a single stock outside of your 401k? You'd be amazed at what people would say. Oh no, investing's gambling. I can't do that. And I'm talking about like straight up. Have you ever owned like fucking AT&T? You know what I'm saying? The most boring. Like I just feel like there's very little to no risk if you're going to take the S&P 500 into a 40% downtrend. It's going to eventually recover. Why do we know this? Because history tells us that it will. If you take a microcap stock into a downturn and the fundamentals deteriorate, you could be looking at 100% catastrophic loss. So, Mariusz, when I look at you, and I mean, I have the highest of respect for you, but when I look at your risk tolerance, even for me in evaluation of your application, it's off the mother effing charts. It's off the chart. It doesn't like, it's not. And that's what I think why I'm so intrigued by your perspective and your approach to this, because you're kind of defining or redefining a misconception about microcap space that has been very, very real for many, many decades, i.e., an arena that you can't play in, an arena that is uninvestable, right? Stay away from penny stocks. The penny stocks are terrible. You're going to lose your entire, and so I'm a fan. I'm fascinated. And quite frankly, I'm a believer to the extent that a market can house an Aduro clean technology that nobody knows about and is there for discovery prior to this inevitable discovery that we talk about. You know what I mean? Whereas before, my conceptions or perceptions about the market were, don't touch it, don't play, it's not worth it.
But
So-
when you're talking about the volatility, you're just talking about volatility. You have no idea what I
Mm-mm.
deal with just to be
Mm-mm.
involved in these markets.
No, sir.
You know how?
No, I do not.
Do you know that I barely have a brokerage account because the brokers don't want to deal with me?
Yeah.
Like
Yep,
they look
yep.
at my YouTube channel and they're like, we're closing your account,
I know it.
right?
I know it.
And then I get phone calls and emails from regulators asking questions all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I just own microcap stocks. Like I'm not a criminal. I didn't kill anybody, but like they treat me as if I did. Like they closed my brokerage account.
Yeah.
Like a Canadian broker closed my
I
brokerage account, and
I
I
know.
called him and I said, dude, I made one trade in the entire year in your account, and all I did was sold some Aduro to exercise my Aduro warrants, and you
Yeah.
are closing my account. Like that's how crazy and ridiculous you guys are and this whole industry. So it's not just like, oh, I'm down. No, they're closing my accounts. They're telling me, that this or that. It's just insane what I have to deal with.
Yeah, I will say two things because I want to backtrack a little bit on what Ryan was saying there. That I think looking at like the three of us, I think it's more a level of most people are not like us and they shouldn't really be playing with individual stocks. I was backpedaling on this recently because I've been talking to multiple people that I've been very privileged that they want to reach out and actually have a conversation. Everything from young kids to like middle-aged people that are just paying off debts to like retirees. And if there's one thing that I've learned is emotional damage by like the definition of like, I know where my emotional damage tolerance is. And like, I've been able to mitigate and do like outperform the markets for a decade, very privileged. But in this market, it's, it's pretty easy to say it's been perpetually to the upside if you've just been sticking with mega caps on that end of it. Even with small caps, that's where I made most of my money anyways, in the early days. But I think the difference is like how emotionally tolerable, because like Mario was saying, it sucks, but he'll ride through it, right? Like he has the risk tolerance for it. But most people, I backpedal into that Dave Ramsey thinking because I realize when I watch how people manage their accounts, it's a fucking disaster. Like they don't know if they're coming or going, and they don't know when to question when things are down. They're not judging businesses, and a lot of it is just emotionally different. And I was saying like, because they were so excited, and I was like, but you're losing money. It's like, you're so excited, but like, is that, and it's not working for you. Like your strategy is it has no rhyme or reason. You're just listening to what people are telling you for blindly buying these things. And now your portfolio has no sector allocation, nothing. It's just in like a 20 stocks of just obliterate randomness. And like, you have no idea, right? And then they just panic sell or whatever. And that's why I think when I'm saying like, it's having some form of a strategy, because for you guys, it's like, who cares? Like you guys are you know how to manage your money because you're not emotionally like connected or involved. I mean, look at how chill Mario's was over here, just like, riding the roller coaster ride. But most people would, I couldn't handle that level of it. But I definitely in the early days, I mean, I was all micro caps when, marijuana boom, things were still good. Now I'm a little bit more hesitant.
I lived through you, Mariusz.
So hold on
I watch you invest.
Go ahead. You don't want to touch marijuana stocks now that they are so beaten down?
No, to some extent, it depends on what they're doing. Like now is the time to find the ones that are surviving. But the concern that I have is like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you can't find a sector where you can take a hold of it and you can prove you have a hold of it, which companies are starting to come out now, but it's a disaster because the competition is unreal, right? Like it costs nothing. Like when you look at the cost of production of this stuff now, it's like everyone and their grandmothers do. I haven't come from Canada though. So it's like literally you could throw a stone and hit a marijuana store or a grow up. Like it's insane, right? So and Canada doesn't have proper promotion. It's very hard. I think in the US, the regulations are a bit more loose on certain aspects because celebrities are like allowed to like, a lot of them are running their own brands and they're mentioning them on podcasts. Like in Canada, you can't do anything. You can't put an ad up in front of the store. Like, so there's no branding on anything, right? So the competition's just unbelievable. But I mean, yeah, the boom and bust cycle is gone right now. It's who's going to survive and take some market share. And it's probably more intriguing now for sure. But I mean,
people, you go on Twitter and when they're talking about this, legalization of safe banking, they're just so beaten down and they don't want to, they don't want to touch it. Yeah. Because I'm involved in Leaf Brands, which is they make extract, and it's like pulling teeth telling people about it, like they don't want to hear it. It's like, look, their land is worth more than their market cap. They just don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Valuation doesn't matter. They're just so disgusted by the sector.
Yeah, Leaf Brands. Frank knows what's going on down there. Yeah, I mean, you like digging and finding some of those. That's the thing, right? Like everyone's not looking at it anymore, right? So that's where you start finding the deals. You start finding the survivors, the brand growers, and the companies that start taking some actual market share. I mean, it's one of those sectors, right? What other sectors do you guys think are super relevant? I mean, Aduro is obviously like one of the only small caps that I'm willing to hold right now. But when it comes to like the spectrum of small caps, I know you're in Leaf Brands, but is there any other sectors you think are interesting? Like a lot with uranium might be overhyped at this point. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Especially like the mix. I mean, commodities are a disaster too right now, right? Like I'm looking at mega cap companies like Nestle just to wonder like how they're surviving this cocoa explosion. I mean, cocoa was the best performing commodity, and that's not something you want to say when it's gone parabolic. Same with like, just some of these commodities have just skyrocketed, and it's killing these brands, man. There's so much intriguing stuff happening across the board right now that, digging around and looking for companies, I don't think has ever been as fascinating as it is now.
But do you hold them for a long time, or do you like to jump around?
With individuals or small caps, like just in general?
Anything.
Yeah, I have my core like ETFs, but when it comes to regular stocks, I will regularly jump around. Like my usual holding period when I buy something is I'm looking at least 3 years out. I try and have somewhat, but then like obviously with Google, like I was all for it until like ChatGPT came along, and I was just curious to what would happen to their market share of search and if it would like decline. Because if there's any sniff out and that happened on earnings, Google could have easily dropped 20 or 30% overnight. Like if they, but then they've proven that AI isn't destroying their search. I mean, we're pretty much past that. Like I try and recognize that stuff because it's how I've avoided like catastrophic loss if I'm buying an individual stock. So I'd rather hold like, maybe several individual stocks that are, bit like just a handful and focus on the ETFs, because that way I can analyze the news and be on top of it and be like aware of what I'm doing. And I like being in these situations where I know what's happening to the Canadian economy because I'm getting like double-edged returns just because of, buying these specific kind of companies in the United States. But yeah, so I'll jump in and out, man. If something freaks me out, like I have no problem selling and just waiting. And, I have no problem buying back if I miss out on a bit of an up gain to avoid that risk. That's the game of individual stocks for me, right? Same with you. Like you're analyzing this stuff nonstop. Like if something catastrophic happened to a company, you're going to ride it to zero. Are you trying to play the broad game of 10, 20 individuals and let the best ones outperform, hold long? Like what's your strategy?
Mariusz is like six.
Yeah,
6,
I mean
8.
the thing is that like what any story, like if you're thinking about Aduro, I mean it's going to take time, right? I mean, when did I get involved? 2022, I think.
22, yeah.
Yeah,
A couple
so
months before May.
It's like it's coming up to 3 years, but it's going to take a lot longer, right? So it's kind of like, I mean, I can find you an investment idea every week, and like I see this problem with a lot of investors. They're like, it's like they need to get high all the time because you find something new. It's like, oh, it's so exciting, but like, I mean, just by getting exciting and buying undervalued stocks is not going to make you money. What's going to make you money is actually sitting on some of them and realizing that growth, that re-rating, that, and that takes time. So, but if I just constantly look for new stuff, then I excite myself too, and then be like, okay, I got to sell because I got to finance this. So then I'm like, no, I need to stick it out.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting dilemma of an investor, right? Because it comes back to the diversification is the killer of return. So you kind of have to. That's why, like, I'm just doing my best to, like I said, I'm not nearly as risk tolerated. So I'd rather just really core focus on some things. Understand I don't know everything, and if the tide changes, so be it. But the funny thing is like I love my my fiance, man, because like in 2022, like when the market started to sell off, it seemed very likely that was going to continue. So I sold almost all my individual stocks. And I said, look, I'll ride it in the ETFs because I know they're not going to drop as much, and I'll let the winners kind of shine because earnings and revenue were dropping, right? Like there was some real concern. So, I mean, I sold Meta. I bought it at a great price. I over, I think it was 150 or something percent return that I sold when it dipped to like 250 or 240 or something. And I said, let's see what happens. I tried to convince the wife to do the same thing. She's like, no, I'll buy ETFs, I'll cost average, but I'm not selling my stocks. I said, that's fine, because we were just over leveraged in this thing, right? And Meta dropped 80% from top to bottom. And
I remember.
she's still holding those shares. And she's looking at me and I'm like, look, I did the appropriate thing because both of us just owned way too much Meta stock. But now she's sitting on here and it's like one of our biggest baggers. And it's like, one of our largest positions. And we haven't even touched it or bought more. It's just like.
So even though it dropped 80%, she still ended up making so much money, right?
I got to give her credit. Yeah, she was more emotionally tolerated, but that's because she's not like me, over analyzing and watching it all the time, right? And that was probably the appropriate approach and what most investors should think of if they believe they hold good businesses. Because the fact was, the whole market was coming down. It's just those stocks had higher beta, right? So they were going to, flip flop a little bit more to the extreme. But again, we all made out like bank too, right? Because we were buying a lot of those bottoms. So I mean, a lot of us were.
But remember what Charlie Munger said: what's the hardest thing for money managers to do, right?
Yeah.
Sit on your ass and do nothing.
Yeah,
I'm very good at this, actually.
Exactly what you're saying.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I
respect that about you, but
soccer and do other things,
but that's a distraction, Mariusz. Like, give yourself some credit. You own the stocks.
Yeah,
and you hold with conviction. That like I said, man, I'm a fan. I'm glad to have you in my network. You invest significantly different than me. I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago, 10 years from now, you're going to buy into a stock and you're going to hold it, and you're going to have close to $250,000 in that stock, you know, and it's going to start in the, you know, microcap space. And I would have said, you're crazy. I said that would have gone against every philosophy that I was teaching upon when I first started YouTube.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
I'm glad you mentioned this YouTube thing, because going back to what we were talking about, you know, jumping in and out. You see, it's not. I don't. It's not good for huge returns if you jump in and out, but it's good if you want to have a YouTube channel, because it's like, oh, here's the next 10
it's
bagger,
entertaining.
and the next week is like, yeah, there's a 25 bagger here.
I will say, man, the sad reality of YouTube is like a lot of people like yourself are pushing your channel to try and build a community around a stock. A lot of these channels are basically just stock chasing views. So like whatever, like that's why I always feel like you get overvaluations in stocks when everyone and their grandmother can't shut up about it, and they're all building huge viewer base off it, and that becomes their core focus. Do or die, no matter what that stock does. They know that's their bread and butter, so they're going to hold on to it, right? And I've done really like people, and I was talking to a lady today about it. I said, don't listen to what I do on YouTube all the time. I think there's a lot of great companies, but I'm looking at like Canadian telecoms, and anytime I talk about certain things, like the viewership just goes, you know, absolutely nuts. So like I'm talking about these stocks regularly, and I'll take positions in them when I think they're fair, just to keep that hype ball rolling, because it brings those viewers in, and then they're going to watch all my other videos, and you know, at least I have a broad discussion of conversations, because I feel like people get so, and it kind of becomes like hypnotic and almost like delusional. Like, how can you talk about a business every day? You don't work there. I'm like, you know, the intricacies of sales and marketing, and how fast, like even the company I work for, you know, how fast the dynamic of marketing changes, and like in our businesses, and like it's just never that clear. And you can't, it's so hard to sit there every day and just nonstop hammer something, and you're like, you know, how are you beating that drum like that, man? It gets exhausting. So I know I'm not as directed. I think Mario, as you're a bit more concentrated, but I like just trying to keep broad topicking and trying to pull people in from all these different directions, and keeps me a little bit more fresh. And yeah, I'll probably buy something in there just to keep the hype. But
this is why when I make 2 million, Mariusz, you're going to be at 50 million. Okay. So that's the difference, really.
Yeah.
Is the potential.
You know, the thing, you see, that's the thing. You're right. You know, so I have now 2 YouTube channels, right? And on my YouTube channel, I'll talk about Aduro, and barely anybody cares. Like it'll get 500 views.
True.
Then on the other one, I'll talk about MicroStrategy and how he's buying Bitcoin, and it's like views going up. Like I couldn't care less about MicroStrategy, but I know if I talk about that, you know, it's going to get views. And then I can tell people about Aduro.
Yeah, link it to a thread that's being talked about, you know. That's the power of momentum.
It's the sad reality of YouTube, right? It was the same thing like you were just saying, Ryan, like what we used to preach, and like a lot of views would come in under that stuff. But now we're like, people don't understand like the financial game that we have going on here. So like I try and spit honesty like the best that I can, but people, like, I got to remind them, I'm here as a clown. I am a financial clown. I'm here for entertainment. If you can find something and learn something new, dig for it. But at the end of the day, like, a lot of us are just talking about things that drive interest, right? Like that's the goal of marketing. I mean, look at CNBC, all these news outlets, all these stock financial news outlets, like they're doing the same thing, but like tenfold worse than what we're doing. I think there's more honesty and still like brutal realism in our realm of it, because we're more representative like retail, right? A lot of those guys are just playing at a scale where they don't even give a shit anymore. I mean,
well, and you see, the thing is that like how this is the problem when you're running a YouTube channel. You know what I want to. I mean, I consider my main channel, it's not successful as a YouTuber. It's not, because I talk about stuff that I believe in, but then it's not going to get the views, the big views, because what makes a video perform? If it gets likes, if it gets retention, and if it's not too long, right? So how do I get likes? To tell people what they want to hear, which is, keep investing in NVIDIA. It's great. It's going to the moon, right? That's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to give you a like. Okay. You can't make the video too long, right? If you make it 30 minutes, no, you got to make it 10 to 15 minutes so they stick around, right? And then you got to be entertaining the first 60 seconds. So it's like, am I going to get good retention and good likes if I talk about an obscure stock that I've never heard of? No. So
what if it goes to $25?
What? Aduro?
Sure.
Oh yeah, it's
Crazier
gonna get
things
more
have
views.
happened.
Of course, like you see, the videos perform better when the stock is up on that day. Of
Here's
course, it's ridiculous, but that's
There's
how
a
it is.
direct correlation.
do you not find though, like, do you, like from the risk mitigation standpoint, because I've seen two sides of this now with some of my speculative plays like MindMed, where like when I get in at something good, and this comes back to the point of being as transparent as possible, because that thing went to the moon and people were just accusing me of pumping. And I'm like, for how small my channel is, for the money that this company's driving into the billions, I am nothing like
Yeah.
Kevin O'Leary pumping this shit on
No,
CNBC.
yeah,
when he's getting
exactly. Talk to
paid to do
Mariusz
it.
about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Look, I mean, look,
Mariusz, you get accused, man. Like,
I'm the chief pumper here. Like,
yeah, you
what
are.
are you talking about?
You
I
are.
have never had
Pronto.
a stock that I wasn't accused of pumping, and I have never had a stock that wasn't a fraud.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, you hear those, you know, clowns talking about how, you know, Aduro has no revenue, so it's worth nothing. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You've never done anything in your life, and you've never tried anything entrepreneurial. So yeah, of course, to you, if and unfortunately, it's a lot of these microcap Canadians. Okay, like seriously, if it was up to them, every company would be profitable from day one.
Yeah.
Fair
But
enough.
I'm gonna get out of here, boys. I have been
You out of here, buddy. Cool.
yeah, man, but
But you know,
Talk
before you go, I got a question for you, Kyle.
shoot.
So, what was the trigger point for you on Aduro?
Honestly, it's just, it takes a long, so people, like you're saying, with patience, I don't think people understand how long I can wait around before I'll buy something. Like, I've been watching the telecom space in Canada tank for like the last, God knows, 2 or 3 years. And I've only just recently, and I've talked about it for a long time, but it's the same thing with Aduro. Like it's one of those things where usually like those big pumps don't come overnight. Like there's no rush to make, like Buffett says, like you don't have to home run it every day. Like I couldn't just look at something and be like, okay, like it has to come onto my radar. I might buy a little bit of it, like continue to watch it, get a feel for management, see who's executing, what's going on, getting like more opinions and just seeing what happens. Because in 1 or 2 years, like look at how fast these small caps can change, right? So it's like, even if Aduro tanks, like so long as it's not material and we just have to see what clients are going to do. And from this point, they've been executing so much and they have such a large interest from mega caps. Like when you're getting that kind of interest, there's something good happening here, right? And when you just look at what they're doing with their pilot plan and what they're already outputting and looking at the efficiencies and the fact of CapEx saving from across the board for all these companies, like people don't care what you're selling, but if it's going to make them money and offer their business efficiency and it falls in those lines of my rules of like ESG, like it has to fit in. Like a lot of companies that made me banger amounts of money was because they fell into all these categories. And the only thing Aduro is missing, just one client. Aduro hits one client. Yeah. And I think we're off to the races. Like people don't appreciate, right? Like
partnership,
you know, because we're not talking small companies. Like they only give a shit about multi-100+ billion, you know, tens of billion-dollar size companies. And those are the companies taking interest. We're not talking about Jimmy Joe down the road with a little like recycling business. I mean, we're talking municipalities and there's like 10 of them, right? I mean, you add up that market cap value and like why those companies are interested in, you know.
Well, and you see, what people don't understand is that literally the plastic production business for these oil giants is in jeopardy.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. I mean, look, the countries want to curb their production, right? They want to, if you don't solve it, we're going to curb your production, make you do something. You get sued left and right, like California sued ExxonMobil, like, and then China and Thailand, they don't want to take your trash anymore. So if you want to keep printing money and keep producing plastic, like you don't have a choice. You got to figure this thing out.
Yeah, and I people have such a hard time wrapping their head around too, like literally just reforming the plastic chemicals, right? Like this chemical technology, it's crazy that like it's so nuanced, but the ramifications are like astronomical. Like everyone's so attentive to like robotics and all this other stuff, and it's just like, look at around you. Like, what's a basic problem? You don't need a fucking robot cleaning your dishes. That's not like a huge priority right now in the household when you're looking at like, you know, all the waste shit and everything we're doing daily that has largely been undisrupted. That's where the real money's at, right? Like, let's be real. Finding bangers like that are just, you know, you just gotta be patient. You don't have to buy as much as Marriott's, but like I said, like when it comes to these companies, you buy 500, $1,000 worth, you know, and you're just patient with it. Right. And like, you know, and see, and then again, just wait, maybe just wait a bit, see if they pan out into a client or two. And then, you're going to miss the initial jump. But like this trajectory of this sector, I think, is so small in competitors and so unrecognized. But I'm going to leave it there because we're all a bunch of Aduro addicts. But stay cool, stay
You
awesome.
the man. Thanks for the time, Kyle. Appreciate you, brother.
Peace out.
Subscribe to Kyle's channel, man. Thanks for the time. I always appreciate his input. Now we get to talk turkey, me and 𝑪𝑢𝑠. I dig it. The floor is yours, my brother. Seriously. I love conversations with you, man, because yeah, I know that our philosophies and approach to markets, they contrast. I've been doing this my whole life, right? And I think people can glean a very interesting perspective by hearing your approach, by understanding. And I've learned from you the depths of tolerance. You can't just step into microcap and expect to kick its ass overnight. You can't. Most people step in, they'll make a few $100 or a few $1,000 or maybe even a few tens of thousands, and they're gone. They'll sell. They will sell without that proper foundation and understanding about not missing out. And I truly can appreciate that now. And I do think we are in a time of information. What you're trying to do with microcap strategies, it makes sense. I hear what you're saying about the naysayers out there. Look, man, my perspective on that is very, very simple. I don't have the time to even acknowledge what other people's are doing with their money. I don't give a shit what they do with their money or what type of criticisms they have of me, because I don't have it of them. Common sense investing. I don't have the time or the energy or the bandwidth to even give a shit what those individuals are doing with their time. I just find it ironic how they have all kinds of time to scrutinize you, because the criticisms are very, very vague and not really acknowledging. I mean, how many people come on and actually compliment you like I have? Risk tolerance is high. You're doing it in a unique way. You've obviously succeeded at it. Look, man, if you didn't make money in microcap investing, I would contact you offline and be like, hey, Mary, you should maybe you should seek out you know what I mean? But there's a lot of different ways of succeeding in stock market investing. And I think that's what needs to be taken and conveyed in people's understanding, that there's a lot of different ways to make it in this game.
That's a good point. And what annoys me about people is their close-mindedness.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, you have a certain approach. You invest in mega stocks, or you invest in profitable stocks, or whatever approach.
This is my way. Piss off.
No problem.
I don't want to listen to you.
I would never say, hey, Ryan, you're being stupid by doing this.
Of course not.
No, it's your thing. It's your tolerance. You're comfortable with it. Go for it. And why do I have to invest your way, right? And if I don't, then I'm a pumper or this or that.
Right.
Every single investment that I have, there's a reason behind it. You don't have to agree with this reason, but I have a reason.
Right.
And it's not, believe me, it's not to pump it and sell it on you. That's not that. And also, not all of my investments are going to work out, and that's okay.
Right.
But
I
don't need all of them to work out.
Right. So I come on, and because look, I mean, you could admit, and if you're going to invest in the stock market, you're going to have bad beats. Okay. I'm sorry to deliver the bad news to people. And if people are tuning into YouTube to find the next golden parachute for themselves, you're looking in the wrong spot. And I'm telling you, there is no spot to look where that exists. Okay. If you're going to invest in the market, even on the major, you're going to go through downturns. Okay. I just brought up in 2018, if you were in an S&P, you lost 37% that year. Okay. That's 40%. If you had 100 grand, you would have left that year with 60 grand in the bank. That's in the most common, popular ETF out there on the market. You know what I mean? And I find it amazing how people come on and they say, well, his performance in this stock and this stock and this stock was bad, therefore it's not worth following the individual. Furthermore, the pump and dump thing is interesting to me, because how can you listen to Eric Appelman speak How can you listen to Ofer speak and the panel and Mina and the share ownership? How can you listen? Go back to some of the legacy conversations they had when Marcus was actually putting out content on YouTube. How can you listen to that and say that it's that? It's
Well, you see,
such
that's
an
the thing.
escape from thinking, man. I
The
don't know what
definition,
else to say.
the definition of a pump and dump is a stock you don't own and you haven't done your work on. Because I'm telling you that I have. So I am in, like you said, 6 stocks or whatever,
Yeah.
and I will have investors that are in Aduro that think that, let's say, Oracle is pump and dump, and then I will have people that are in Oracle
Right.
thinking that Aduro is pump and dump. It's just craziness, and they don't do the work on the other one. They don't. They just make a snap decision, and then they call it something, right? And it always comes from the people that refuse to do the work.
Two things. A pump and dump is to come on and inflate the stock price with the intention of deceiving people and selling before the hype gets realized. In other words, I come on with an intent to deceive. Okay. My intent is to tell people that this, and this is going on to inflate the stock price so that I can enrich myself at the expense of those people who helped me increase that stock price. The reason I give that articulate definition is because that goes on to this day. Okay. And I cannot believe that we are even in that conversation because, number one, I am an owner and have been. I have declared since day one my actual I don't have to do that, by the way. Okay. My only legal obligation is to disclose that I provide those services for the company. That's it. But I go one further and say, look, if this is going to be a pump and dump, then where's the dump? Because I'm an owner in the company. And I disclose those openly. Okay. Second of all, I don't care what you do with your shares. I don't care. My interest is solely to convey information that the upper management has decided to put in a legally vetted press release. And that's it. The power of YouTube, if leveraged in that way, is very, very powerful. And we can reach a lot of people, Mariusz. I can't control if somebody comes into the Independent Investor channel, finds my latest Aduro video, and says, you know what, Ryan's right. I don't know shit about this company. I'm putting $250,000 on it down. There's people out there that will do that. No education, no nothing. That person stands to make just as much as the educated investor. There's nothing I can do about that. But that's the power of social media in bringing notoriety and attention to a stock that I contend to this day does not have enough notoriety. I hope outside the box capital can provide that for them because that is the key ingredient. You mentioned this on your video earlier on today. I totally agree with you. I think that this company suffers in its stock price from lack of notoriety. And let's be real, I can only do so much on the I2. I do put aside the potential for people coming on and finding the same Aduro that an outside the box capital is going to advertise for to millions of prospective investors out there, right? It's the same idea, right? I can just reach a smaller audience because my reach is X number of people on the channel. But I do.
Looking at all the companies that I have, Aduro is doing it right in terms of utilizing all of these tools to bring investor awareness. They're not afraid. They're not afraid to hire outside the box capital. They're not afraid to engage you, and that's the right thing because we live in a new world right now. Why wouldn't even Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy? I listened to an interview with him, and he said, years ago, in order to learn something, you had to be in a college hall, 200 people, and then the information it took forever to educate. And now
buy a Bloomberg account.
Yeah, and now
buy a Bloomberg account, $20,000 a year.
Right. But now he's like, I can do an interview on your podcast.
That's
It
right.
will get 50,000 views, and the education goes much further. Why wouldn't we take it and take it from these companies and use YouTube, social media, and spread the message? But also the people that are out there criticizing. Why don't you for a second put yourself in the shoes of the company, in the
Yeah.
shoes of the CEO that
Why would they do this?
has a business or has a technology that has to be financed? Because really, a stock market is a tool for companies to finance themselves. Stock
That's right.
market is not to serve investors. It's
Yeah.
there to raise money
Bingo.
from investors. So what are these companies supposed to do? If you are selling a house, you are putting it on the market, and you are letting the market know, I am for sale. Is this a pump and dump? It's communicating the message, here's a house, and just because you paid a realtor to advertise you doesn't make your house more or less valuable. Okay?
Right.
People
Exactly.
are not going to find the house on their own unless you tell them about it, and unless you hire somebody to put your house in MLS to let people know it's out there. It's no different with public companies. They have to let people know they are out there, and they have to go out there and tell the story. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like this, especially when you're a micro cap stock from Canada that has no liquidity. You can't just phone a big YouTuber and say, hey, cover us. It doesn't work like they don't want to touch you. You stigmatize. You're a penny stock. You're nothing. You have no revenue, so you're not worth anything, right? So they have to do so much work to
Mm-hmm.
get more attention, and this might mean hiring somebody like a agency, or paying somebody to pay attention. Okay, actually, I, for years I've been in ballroom dancing competitions, and so you go and you do a competition, and then the couples that do competitions, a lot of times they will go and take private lessons from various different coaches that are
Yeah.
judging competitions. Now, they take those lessons not necessarily because they have something to learn from these coaches, because a lot of these coaches haven't been dancing for years. So they retired in 30 years ago, but they
Yeah.
take lessons from them. Why? They pay them so that they look at their dancing on the dance lesson. That's what they pay
Yeah.
for. I'm paying you so you look at me, so that when I go into a competition, you will actually pay attention to me. And
Yeah.
it's no different here. You have to sometimes pay somebody, let's say an influencer, you pay them so that they listen to your story. And then they're like, oh, wow, you have this technology. You're solving this big problem. Well, if I didn't pay you, you would never look at me.
Yeah.
Right? And people don't think about that because because they've never done anything themselves. They've never ran a company, and they never had to be like, how can I get more attention for my company?
Yeah, but man, this is easy to understand, brother. I like why why would Aduro do this if they didn't anticipate a bright future? Why would they do this? And that's the way I look at it. I have people email me all the time and they're like, thank you for introducing me to Aduro. That's real impact. Okay. Now, the double edged sword of that is this is stock market investing. If it goes down, that's going to hurt people financially. Okay. Whether it be to the tune of 100 shares or 100,000 shares. Okay. My thing is, and you know as well as I do, I'm exclusive now to Aduro. And for the viewing audience here, within the last minute or so of the live stream, I get solicited every single day of people wanting to promote all kinds of different products, not just good companies, but product advertisement, et cetera, this and that. Hell, I just got an email this week from Jeremy, Financial Education's crew. We want to partner with the independent investors. Like, really? He knows I hate the guy, but I am exclusive to this company because I think that their intentions are absolutely aligned with would-be share owners. So my job is simple. I come on and I convey a conviction story. If I came on and I owned 0 shares, Mariusz, would that work? Of course not.
No.
Of course not. But when I'm over 52,000, 53,000, I'm still buying shares in the company because I think on a pre-split basis, this trades for $1.89, $1.89. That's the reality. I don't look at a $6 stock price right now. That's why I look at, on a pre-split basis, if this goes over $10, that's a share price of over $37 in the U.S. markets. It can get there, and it can absolutely get there within those 2 years with what they have on the horizon and what they need to pay to share. If Aduro is making all of these monumental steps and nobody knows about it, then the tree falls in the woods. Who hears it?
Exactly.
What does it matter? What does it matter? We haven't given a shit about plastic recycling up to this point. So why is it, Mr. Investor, do we have to care now? Those are all rhetorical questions that I think we play a pretty pivotal part. I know for the people who I represent on this small channel that could, the people who would never have been provided this opportunity, and I put myself in this. If you guys hadn't have called me 2.5 years ago or just around 2.5 years ago and said, Ryan, you need to hear this. I was on the road. You remember that? I was on the road. I took a call with you and Yazan, and you're like, here it is. It's been third-party verified. That's the verification we had at the time on the technology. Now we've got multi-billion-dollar companies that are like in advanced stages of, knocking on the door to commercialization. This shit is real. And it's happening right now. It's exciting, man. And I think for people who come on and they listen,
remember the first days when you exposed it, how many accusations you got?
Well, yeah, it was horrible.
It's not
was
real.
Horrible. Tough time for me personally, coming off of a fairly bad beat as well. The timing for me in my life to invest in Aduro Clean Technologies could not have come at a worse time. A worse time. It's not like I was coming off of a studly trade and I was rolling profits into Aduro. No. I was licking wounds from a previous bad beat and still saw the
Are you talking about helium?
opportunity.
Helium?
Exactly. And still saw the opportunity. Why? Because it's there. And I'm not the only one who sees this opportunity. I know you see it, but there are multi-billion-dollar investors out there that are looking at this right now. The way that this company trades on the open market, I have been covering markets my entire life. Do I need to watch the stock? No. Do I? Yes, I'm fascinated by it, and that's what I do. But the stock action in Aduro Clean Technology is something to take note of. And it is a couple of months removed of uplisting to the NASDAQ. And I can tell you that this floor that it is creating, do you think inevitably this thing is going to trade less than 100,000 shares a day, Mariusz? Get real. Hyliion trades 1.5 million shares a day, and it's a piece of shit company. I can't get the CEO to acknowledge one single tweet. I could call Ofer right now and get him on the line. That you talked about this. The access to the management. I know every one of them. I've met Anil. These are real people that are working round the clock on this project. They're invested because they are invested along with investors. And that is a sense that I get from this company that is going to be not only part of the pedigree that I have applied with Aduro, that will be applied in future investments down the line as being one of those attributes that has to be in place for these, because these are not commonplace. I believe that attributes that are identified in Aduro speak to the conviction that we all can agree on, but going forward, it's going to be part of my evaluation for further opportunities, because If they don't have it, they're not going to meet muster with me. They're not. Aduro was a slam dunk to me. I looked at it. You talk about the 1 month of reservation, and I really appreciate that color. It was not like that for me. I was pissed that I missed a 10 cent appreciation from 52 cents to 62 cents before I entered into the comp. I was fucking pissed because I called my broker, and you know what I told you. I think you've heard this.
Until $5, we're not interested.
That's what
right?
they said. This is Bank of America. This is not small potatoes. This is not Robinhood. This is This is Merrill Lynch. Merrill Edge.
I mean, it's crazy that
sorry,
we're
sir,
in
we don't honor it
2020.
until it gets to
We're in
$5.
2025, and we have to deal with this. It's just insane. Like they treat these stocks like syphilis.
I think that what is going to unfold over the next couple of years could define a very, very blue ocean. And we'll wrap down the live stream a little bit, but I don't want to do it until I give proper credit. When this thing materializes, all I can do, man, instead of saying pump and dump and you're paid, promote, blah, 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 I will just very, very simply say thank you. Thank you. Because there's not enough appreciation through YouTube or any social media. It's the most shallow place for people to come and bash people. If they did it in person, they'd get their head punched off. You know what I mean? But nobody shows any type of appreciation. And I will say this with full conviction. If this hadn't been brought to me, introduced to me, the same way that we introduce it to, let's say, hundreds and potentially thousands of people out there, they wouldn't have known about Aduro clean technology, just like I wouldn't have known about it either.
Exactly.
That's my 2 cents, man. And I'm so happy. I was just telling my wife tonight, I am so thankful to be looking at this opportunity because we are sitting on a mother effing gold mine. It is a gold mine. Aduro must execute. They must. They must. Execute.
I mean, have you have you ever seen anything like this where it's like $1 trillion problem? The world has to solve it. They are the oil companies are desperate to solve it.
100%.
We hear it from the management that the interest for the technology is just off the hook.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
competing technologies cannot even come close. And,
economically.
And then investors, barely any investors know about this company. And it's trading for less than 200 billion. I have never seen anything like this before.
Nor
it's
have
like
I.
It's
and
like
I look.
It's even better.
They're not out there.
It's even
They're
better
not out.
than
Go
Tesla.
look. I charge the people in the live stream tonight, and the 700 or 800 people that are going to catch this. I charge you to go find the next Aduro clean technology.
I mean, look, it's even better. It's even better than Tesla because what does Tesla do? Like, okay, they made a car that's
ruin
electric.
The environment.
But
ruin the environment. Don't get me on the soapbox. Yeah.
I mean, do we like what? I have a car. Okay, it runs on gas. Like I can get from point A to B. I don't need Tesla. It's nice to have it, but I don't need it. What we're here is nobody can solve this. Nobody.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And here we have a technology that can solve this, and nobody else can. Like this is a gold mine, like you said, and that's why I said in my video that I made today, like you don't need catalysts. You just need millions of eyes on it. And this thing is going to go because you show it to enough people and you will get people that fall in love with this.
I agree with you to a point. I will say that this stock has not been subject to momentum. If you can take a company like GameStop and put momentum behind GameStop and drive it to the moon, could you imagine when people are introduced to this? I have yet to find a bearish flaw with this company. I can make shit up. I can say that a pre-revenue condition now is a bearish flaw in the company, but I hate when people come in and they say, well, based on its pre-revenue status or, it made 30 grand last quarter, I'm not going to invest in the company. Well, no shit. They're not making money now. You have to understand where they are in stepping toward that inevitable commercialization. And what they don't understand is it can happen like that. And when it does happen and they write that first contract,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too over my skis on this thing, because I think, to your point, I have watched this company for 2.5 years, and what has really moved the stock is internal news that Aduro puts out on their own accord. And if they announce that they are moving into a partnership of some level of scale with a multi-billion-dollar oil company, it's game over.
I mean, what are the oil companies going to do? They're going to be like, you know what? We don't want to recycle plastic. Screw it. We're not going to solve this problem. Is this what they're going to do? They can't
I know.
afford. They can't
way.
afford not. And what else are they going to do? Pyrolysis? They're going to go
I
to
know.
pure cycle?
I know.
Like,
They got to
who's
go
gonna-
to pure cycle. They got to go to it. That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand about pure cycle. I see pure cycle has benefited from that momentum that I speak of. Pure cycle has already got its momentum to show the power of what a company that I think has very little fundamental basis can move with momentum. Aduro has not been subjected to that yet. It is not. Argue with me all day. We're up in the stock. I'm up, but it has been based on a mechanical appreciation in the stock based on news that has come to the mainstream. But it has not been by nature of momentum. It has not been by nature of frantic buying in the company.
No,
No
it has
freaking
been
way.
by the nature of pulling teeth.
100%. It's been dentistry for 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Straight up.
It's-
Straight up.
It's been shoving the information down people's throats and saying, "Eat it."
Yep. Pretty much.
I think
we'll
I
end
think we're
on
good. I think we're good.
We'll end
for
on that
today.
note, man. I left the ticker symbol. That's the last comment on there. You can see me and Mariusz, and I want to thank Mariusz, a future channel of mine. Obviously, I think he's got over 100 pieces of content online on his channel. You can link over there from the Independent Investor channel. I'm glad to support him. I basically have made an investment in Mariusz's channel, and it's fun to watch him grow. I disagreed with what you said about your channel not growing, because I've seen you grow from a couple thousand subscribers to, if you could get 500 people in a room and talk to them, that would be powerful. You're 20,000 people, and that's real reach. And all you got to do is subscribe for free, and you can become privy to this information that me and Mary used to deliberate on behind the scenes when we're not coming on in a public audience like this. And you get to sit back and enjoy consuming that content. So, Mariusz, thanks for the time. I appreciate you, man. And we'll catch you on the flip side. All right.
All right.
Yep. Later. So I want to thank the two guests tonight. I want to thank the audience. Obviously, we didn't get to a whole lot of questions, but it changes the dynamic on the live stream when we have those guests and we get to, pulse in with different perspectives and approaches to the market. I think it's super important for us to understand that. I'm fascinated by it. I really am. We can outline those differences and we can, try to draw some synergies between the application. And I think for me, it really comes down to all three of us panelists have a philosophy and a psychology about how we approach the market. And we have all three in our own right succeeded in deploying that philosophy and psychology for ourselves. Okay. Hence the importance of understanding and taking away the importance of independent thought in your application, educating yourself, putting yourself on a path to continual education. I'm 47. I'm not immune to learning, and we will continue to do that as we continue to learn and grow as investors. And hopefully our portfolios do the same. So thank you very much to the guests. We'll catch you next Friday on the fastest 60 minutes on YouTube. Be well, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week.